Please take your seats. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. It's extraordinary to be remembering Clement, somebody who was actually, as we heard, assuming it is the same Clement, mentioned by Paul in his letter to the Philippians. Clement was active in the church in Rome. He seems to have written with the authority of a council to the church in Corinth, directing and instructing them. The letter shows the authority of one senior presbyter intervening in a conflict in another church, full of valuable information on the history of the developing church. And his very sort of structured hierarchy of the structure and order, administration of the church, has seems to be the basis of the episcopal arrangement that we are party to today in the Church of England. Our letter from Paul to the Philippians is quite a strange excerpt from Philippians. I don't know how familiar you are with the letters in the Bible, but the Corinthians tend to be the ones, as Clement wrote to, that need to be written to, that need to be put in order. But the Philippians, I tend to think of that passage, rejoice in the Lord always. Having had my sort of introduction to church as a chorister, as a nipper, that's one of my favourite little anthems, rejoice in the Lord always. And it's actually written by somebody in prison to a persecuted church, intriguingly. But that's a way that we can deal, I think, with the challenges in our own life, and it is an offer that we have to the people amongst whom we live. That worship and a regular pattern of worship, of prayer, can sustain us, whether we're waiting for an operation, whether we're recovering from a broken relationship, or whatever it is that we are going through, as well as connecting us with the real presence of God by the Spirit. But here, Paul is writing to Philippians, sort yourselves out. Quite strong language. Many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Of course, the sort of hairs on the back of my neck to prickle as I read that out to us, trying not to make eye contact with anybody in case they leapt up and stormed out, so if I'd excommunicated them in the authority that I don't have to do such a thing. But then he goes on, after we think, oh my goodness, is that me? To say, our citizenship is in heaven. Perhaps equally challenging. Maybe people want to get up and leave now. It's like people say if you go to conferences and there are a number of different rooms in the venue, and they might start their seminar by saying, this seminar is about something or other. If you're expecting a seminar on something else, you're in the wrong room. This is your opportunity if you want to get up and leave. But one of the things I love, we've had the opening paragraph. Some of you are standing against the cross of Christ. We are part of the citizenship of heaven. But the last paragraph, I urge these two women whose names I've mispronounced, Euodia and Syntyche, two women, to sort yourselves out. And for those of you amongst whom they live, to help them sort themselves out. And it's not just because they're bickering as we did in my curious parish about whether we should serve tea alongside coffee at the back of the church afterwards. I imagine, I accept that for that congregation that was a significant issue, but I imagine they are passionate about their faith and disagree passionately about something that really means something to them. So the community are asked to support them to get over their disagreement or to learn to live with it. But the interesting feature, we're told that Paul thinks that women should wear hats in church and that they should remain silent. But actually here we have Paul saying, they have struggled beside me in the work of the gospel. Paul writes, these women, whom he cares for, have struggled beside him in the work of the gospel. That probably doesn't just mean serving coffee or tea at the back of church after the service. And then we move on to the gospel. Those of us who felt maybe God was talking about us when we stood in the way of the cross, maybe the gospel isn't for us this morning. But if we were those who thought, yes, we are floating 2 or 3 feet above the ground because we're Christians and you're not, or I've read this book and you haven't, maybe the gospel is for us. When you sit down, don't assume the place of honour. Those of us who have been CEOs, or who've been head teachers, or who've been chair of the NFU, will know when we go into a room quite often that there is an expected place for us to sit. I know when I go to PCC, certainly one of the churches I was in previously, it was kind of almost a mockery because I knew that they were working with the bishop to try and get me removed from my post. And if I'd arrive in church and there'd be a great big chair like this magistrate's chair from the old police station, sort of in the chancel, with a great big table in front of me, with a glass of water and a pen and a notepad, and the neighbours were sitting at the back of the church in the furthest pews right at the back. And I don't know really whether that was a place of honour or whether it was the electric chair. One way or another. It can destabilise if I automatically decide to slightly naughtily sit not on the chair that has been provided for me. There are stories of clergy dressing up as tramps and sitting at the back of their church and seeing how well they are welcomed in their own church by their own people. I wouldn't try and do that because it's very easy when we turn up on a Sunday to need to get through our tasks of unlocking, putting the heating on and getting the books out. It's an easy win perhaps to make people feel really wretched and rejected that they didn't take the care that they should have. But it seems to me that all of us can recognise that the treasure that we hold is given to us like a hot potato on a Sunday after church or community lunch to share with others, not for us to keep to ourselves. Our privilege and our honour is for us to give to others. Our share, our understanding is for us to disperse, to break and share that others may partake of the great gift and feast that has been provided for us. And the more of us that get involved, the more we need to have order and good governance so that we may be accountable. And it seems a fairly dry and dusty reason to appreciate a saint, but unless you are a librarian or a born administrator, you may recognise that it is indeed a great gift to be able to put things in order to make sure that people turn up at the right time, at the right place, and can find that which they are looking for. Because there are some who would recognise the lines of a song from back along, maybe 40 or 50 years ago now. Some still have not found what they are looking for. Amen.